I attended my first Chef Community Summit in 2014. And I remember how I was sitting in awe of these stalwart figures in the chef community. Figures like Nathan Harvey, Chris Weber, Doug Ireton, and this next speaker. Now, I remember I was shocked when the speaker came up to me later after an open space on orchestration, and he remembered my name and told me, "You've been saying some really smart things today." This person showed me that not only was the chef community a healthy and vibrant place to be, but that there was a place for me in it too. Since moving to the chef board, our next speaker has dedicated his career to figuring out how to do open source in a sustainable way, both for businesses and communities. Please give a warm welcome to Adam Jacob.
How's everybody doing? Everybody made it, that's cool. You could have stayed in bed or whatever, but you didn't. You're here at the ChefConf, and it's nice to see you. Yeah, like Nell said, I'm on the board now. That's cool. I was always on the board, but now that's the only thing I'm doing, which is cool. So yeah, I'm gonna give you like a little update on me, and then I'm gonna walk you through like a little existential crisis I had. So basically, I'm just gonna talk about myself for like 20 minutes, and you're just gonna eat it. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. So what have I been doing? People ask. They're like, "Oh, are you got a new thing you're doing? Are you like you must be developing some lovely new technology?" And the answer is no. No, I'm not. Clicker, come on, Clicker, you got this. Maybe Clicker. Oh, this is always going to be a jinxie kind of moment. Yeah, Clicker. Can you click me from back there, maybe? I bet they can't. Somewhere there's a dude back there, and he's like, "Oh, I'm doing what I can." I bet they need me to come back there and mess with my laptop. Yeah. So I built a Linux box. I'm going to talk to you while I do it. Here, take this. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I did when I left was I decided that I didn't want to use a Mac anymore because I wanted to only use things that I really liked. And so I bought this Chinese laptop made by Huawei. It's MateBook X Pro, and everybody makes the same joke when they talk about it. They're like, "Dude, it's got like Chinese spyware or whatever in it," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, but it's fucking cool. It looks great." And then I put Arch Linux on it, and I'm running Wayland and Sway, and I plugged it in yesterday to do this thing, and I was like, "Holy shit, it just worked!" And the dude who's next to me, who's a delight, said to me, "Don't say that, man. That's not gonna work," and he's right. Okay. Try to click it now. You have the clicker. Oh, look at that. So what actually happened was, let's give it up for 2 seconds to Sway and Wayland though. So when I plugged this thing in, like it just worked. Like all these displays came on and everything just worked. And I hit like Windows 4 and it like shot the window to the place. And I was pretty stoked. I basically thought I should just go home because it's not going to get better than this in conference land. And I was right. That was the best moment with that laptop. Okay, Derek, hit the music again. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Chef. It's good to be back. I've been gone for a while. I've been doing things with my daughter. That was the next slide. Do you feel like there was enough build-up to the slide? Okay. Whew, things I've been doing. Well, I've been building a laptop. It's running Arch Linux and Sway. It's pretty dope. I wrote my own little thing for finding wireless networks. You should try it. It was cool. I've been also walking my daughter to school. That's been amazing. I've been playing video games. That's been pretty good, too. I'm still bad at Sekiro, though. You might, if you've been to other ChefConfs, you might remember I'm also bad at Dark Souls. So there you go. I've been playing with my cats. That's been super great. One of my cats is on Prozac because she was just a little anxious and she had like a pee-pee problem. And so I spent a lot of time cleaning up cat pee and being like, "Dude, here's a cat tree," or like something. And then I gave the cat Prozac and then she was fine. And I was like, "Why didn't you just give me Prozac in the first place?" Like, why was the advice like, "Get another cat box, and have you changed the litter?" Like, just give him Prozac. The one thing about Prozac, though, is that every once in a while she gets a squinty eye. So I have a squinty eye, but very chilled out cat. Yeah, they're a delight. But that's my advice. If you have a cat with a pee-pee problem, just go straight to Prozac. skip all the other cat psychiatry things and just do that. I've been running a Dungeons & Dragons game. That's been pretty dope. This is my notebook where I built an encounter. This was a pretty cool encounter where they were sort of coming up on like a town that had been ravaged by an orc horde, and there were some people sort of left over that they found. This is when the players discovered that hobgoblins are dangerous in groups. Raise your hand if you know why hobgoblins are dangerous in groups. Those are my people right there. Those are the true chef people. These are all first-time Dungeons & Dragons people, and they were like, what's happening with hobgoblins? I've been hanging out with my friends. These are some of my friends. That's my friend Brad and Ryan and Brad's daughter Ariana, who is incredibly cute. I also was hanging out with a friend of mine, Sunil Dhaliwal. Sunil was the Series B investor in Chef. He was on our board for a long time. Now he runs a fund called Amplify. And we were sitting in a park together talking about life, because we were, both, now we're friends in actual life as opposed to just in business. And he asked me this question. He said, would you start another open source company? And I said, no. And it wasn't like a hesitant no. I didn't take time to think it through and feel nah. They just popped directly out of me, and it was emphatic. It was like, no, not doing it. No, never again. And as soon as it came out of my mouth that way, I was like, why would I say that? No? Really? No? A lot of my identity is wrapped up in being the open source community guy, and I started an open source company, and I've written blog posts on licensing and shit, and I'm pretty sure that I should have said yes. But I didn't. I said no. And it really did send me on this very deep, existential journey, because I was like, wow, that came from a real primal emotion spot, it was down deep in the cockles there was that no. And I was like, why? What was it that I did? And the more I reflected on it, the thing about building companies and about communities is that they're both really emotional work. Right? There's hard work to be done in the day-to-day, just doing the work of the actual work with your hands or your mind or whatever it is. But the human work, the emotional labor of just being with other people and managing those things is a lot. And the list of different kinds of stakeholders that you have when you are in business and when you're in a community is really big. You've got, I've got co-founders and other executives, and I have a boss. I have Barry Christ. I've got employees and investors and board members, and then I have customers, and there's evangelists, and then there's developers and contributors, and just people who use the software, but they're not really customers. And this is only the list that would fit on the slides, right? It's a huge list of different people. And each of those people, sort of on their own, just wants whatever it is that they want, right? When you break those people down and you take away their titles and you take away all the other things, they want stuff. They want automation. They want friends. They want money. They want recognition. They want power. They want, who knows what they want. I've got my own list, right? There's a ton of weird, I want to play D&D and give my cat Prozac, right? I got all kinds of stuff that I want. And so essentially all of these people, in all of these different ways, are playing this utilitarian kind of game with themselves. They've just got what they want, and they're trying to maximize it. This is John Stuart Mill. He's the first of several black and white photos of philosophers. Why do you think there are black and white? Why are all philosopher photos black and white, Derek? Do you know?
Because it makes you look really smart.
Yeah, I think he looks smarter than he would otherwise. Also, they don't really smile. Later they do. Later a little. When you get into the 70s, they start to chill out a little because I think they were wearing bell bottoms. But look, John Stuart Mill is the person who gave us this phrase utilitarian, right? And, when we think about people with their own desires, everybody has the things they want, and they've got this whole mess of them, and they tend to act to further those desires, right? I want to play D&D. Therefore, I find people to play with, and I build the game, and, we play D&D, right? Because I'm acting to further my own desires. Some of those are altruistic desires. Some of them are not so altruistic, right? And if all we do is think about ourselves and just do what we want, then what we are is a hedonist. Do we have any hedonists in the audience? You just do what you want? Right. Joshua Timberman raised his hand. You're not a hedonist. Known you since we were 9. He's not a hedonist. But look, but John Stuart Mill was not a hedonist. He was a utilitarian, and he defined it this way. He said, actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, and they're wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness, right? And what makes him different than, a hedonist is that utilitarians care about aggregate happiness, right? They care about all of the mass happiness in the world. So John Stuart Mill didn't care about his own happiness alone, although that mattered. He cared about the whole group. Everybody in the room, he cared about whether you were, as a group, happier or less happy than you were before. And so in theory, if we can all agree on what makes us happy as a group, what our utility is, what the thing is we value most, then we can do the right thing as a group. We can look at any given decision and we can be like, yeah, you know what? If we did X instead of Y, how many people in this room like bacon? Keep your hand up if you like bacon more than you like bananas. Right, it's the whole group. Therefore, we should have more bacon. Utilitarianism, super easy, right? And there's one person who put their hand down and was like, I love bananas. And we're like, that person, right? No bananas for them, right? You know what's weird is as a board member, I should probably swear less on stage. But the more comfortable I am, the more I swear. You've heard this before. Anyway, I'm feeling good right now. Swear words are coming out. Okay, so this sounds like a good plan, right? Everybody raised their hand. We all prefer bacon. Seems good. Turns out this is a pretty awful plan. It actually leads to some pretty bad scenarios. And one of those things is yet another philosopher. This guy was Robert Nozick. Robert Nozick, this picture was taken in the 70s. You can tell because he's smiling and looking kind of dapper. Still black and white, though. They definitely had color photography in the 70s, right? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely they did, right? Of course. Robert Nozick was a critic of utilitarianism, and he came up with this idea to explain why this is a bad idea for running large groups of people, and he came up with this thing called the utility monster, and it goes like this. He says, utilitarian theory is embarrassed by the possibility of utility monsters who get enormously greater gains in utility from any sacrifice of others than these others lose. For, unacceptably, the theory seems to require that we all be sacrificed in the monster's maw in order to increase total utility. Raise your hand if you understood what I just said. Yeah, there's a couple of you. Okay, I'm going to break it down for you a slightly easier way. Who here likes the Cookie Monster? Yeah, who in this room likes cookies? Everybody likes cookies. I mean, really, if you didn't raise your hand, you still like cookies. Like, there's still a minute where you're like, oh, it's a good cookie, right? But the Cookie Monster loves cookies, right? You give him a cookie, he's like, and all he wants next is more cookies, and he is stoked. Right? He is the happiest monster that ever Muppeted. And so he's got all of the joy, right? And so because his happiness with the cookie is so high, if we just take all the cookies at ChefConf and we just feed them to the Cookie Monster, and he's like, then we've created more aggregate happiness through the consumption of those cookies by giving them to the Cookie Monster than we would have done if each of you had one cookie, right? Because the Cookie Monster is stoked. He loves cookies, and it makes him so happy, and what we care about is aggregate happiness, and so the number of happiness units that came into the world went up because the Cookie Monster loves cookies, right? And we kind of love to watch the Cookie Monster eat cookies because he's so stoked about it, and so every time you give him a cookie, he's like, rah, 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 and the cookie's gone, but you're like, oh, that was funny, and then you feed him another cookie, right? That's the utility monster, right? And honestly, this is kind of what running an open core business is like. You're surrounded by utility monsters. This one is the business. It's Chef. And what it cares about is revenue. It cares about money. It cares about whether or not it's a good business or a bad business. It cares about all of those things. This one's my customers. They care about their problem. They don't care about anybody else's problem. Right? They don't care about some other customer's problem. They don't care about my problems. They don't really care about my revenue so much, right? But they care about what they care about. This one are my contributors. They care about the code, right? They care about whether or not their patch gets into that thing so they don't have to have this thing that was broken still be broken. And that's what they care about. And anytime we deliver anything good to any of those people, man, their happiness goes up. They're like, good job, right? And for any individual person, you tend to think that everybody else shares your same vision of utility, right? Not always, because we're not bad people, but in general, we're like, yeah, we feel pretty aligned. Like, we're all here, we're hanging out. Even like the Open Source Initiative and the Free Software Foundation, they're utility monsters too. The Open Source Initiative cares about whether or not there's more open source software in the world. If what you do creates more open source software, man, they're gobbling it up like the Cookie Monster. They're down, they're in, 100%. If it doesn't, get out. Bad news, right? The 996 license, workers in China who were forced to work crazy hours, wrote a license that says we won't work crazy hours. Open source was like, I don't think that's open source, brah. And I'm like, really? Because I think it's bad that they work to death. But it didn't fit their vision of utility, therefore it's out. Free Software Foundation, different kind of utility. They care about user freedom, right? If what you're doing makes it so that you can use the software you want to use and the way that you want to use it on the devices you want to use it on and do what you want to do with it, it's better. If you can't, it's bad. There you go. It's black and white, right? And if you disappoint any of these humans in any way, they turn cynical and hostile. In particular, if you disappoint them by not feeding them enough cookies at the appropriate time. And if you serve too many cookies to any one of these people, well, then the whole thing is clear that you never cared about what they cared about anyway. It was always just a sham. You were just faking it, man. You didn't really believe in that community stuff. You didn't really believe, or for me, you really believe in that community stuff, but I don't think you're any good at this business thing. Right? Like I heard every variation of every possible one of those things. And it turns out my job was to balance those things, right? My job was to just try and do the right thing. And while I'm proud of what I did, and I feel like I did a pretty good job of doing it, it was still painful enough that when my friend asked me, would you do it again? I just said no. I was like, nope, I am out. Because I'm hanging out with my kid, I'm playing video games, I got shit to do, and none of it is worrying about whether or not anyone else, their version of utility is good or bad, right? It's just not my thing anymore. And so if it sucks so much, why do it? And it turns out that I do it because I love community. I love people. I believe in them. I believe in you. I believe in human beings. And I believe that you're not actually utility monsters. That at our best, and when we come together and we find a way to care about the same things, even though we want other things too, we can find a way to have those things and still all love the thing that we love. And those communities have been just in the center of my life. I love the idea of Ubuntu. I know in my heart that the only reason I'm here is because you're here. And if you weren't here, I don't get to do the things that I'm doing. I don't get to be the person that I want to be. And if you get better and you thrive in the way you want to thrive, well, then so do I. And it doesn't matter that the thing that you care about isn't quite the thing I care about, because we do care about a lot of the same shit. And, those things have been the center of my life my whole life. The first time I used FidoNet and realized I could send packet mail to Russia, I was like 9. And the Cold War was like a big deal when you're 9, and the Cold War's happening, and it's been happening like my whole little life, and I'm like, oh my God. And then I was like, those are Russians, like actual Russians who like parachute into your high school and like murder all the kids, and we have to be like Wolverines, And I was like, you guys know what I'm talking about?
Red Dawn.
I'm super losing people under 40, but everybody over 40 is like, yeah, man, I remember the Cold War. I have a fun, I'm going to take a little aside. This is going to run long, but it's a funny story. I worked with this delightful, very tall Ukrainian guy, and I was not being my best self, and I was mimicking his accent. And he came up behind me while I was like doing my impersonation of him, and he put his hands on my shoulders, and he was like, if you make fun of my accent again, I'll kill you. And I was like, whoa, okay, I won't do that again. And he was like, also, you guys are dumb. And I was like, why are we dumb? And he was like, because in Russia, we knew that anyone who has Beatles not going to kill us by parachuting into high schools. And I was like, touche. Touche, my friend. I didn't know that was going to come out on this FidoNet slide, but it's who we are now as people. Okay, moving on. Another thing that happened for me was I was in a grocery store, and I found this comic book. This is the X-Men. It's roughly issue 238. They were in Genosha, in case you're an X-Men nerd. And I picked up this series of comics from the grocery store and loved the crap out of it. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. And it was so cool, and I loved it. And then there was a comic book store in the same little strip mall that had the grocery store where I bought these comic books. And I went into that comic book store, and I was like, have you read this thing with the Uncanny X-Men? And they were like, yeah, It's pretty great. And I was like, it is great. And then I was nerdy about these 3 issues, and they were nerdy with me. And then I bought more comic books, and then I met Joshua Timberman. And like the whole thing, like here we are, right? Community. It was so good. And my first job, I worked there, was a delight. She kept that store open just for us. Not even a lie. I found theater. When I was in high school, I was like, man, I'm nerdy. People pick on me or whatever. It's why I wear metal t-shirts, because there were these metal dudes who were like, don't pick on that guy or we'll kill you. And I was like, awesome. And then I was no longer, at least beat up. And that was amazing. And then there was the Perl community that taught me how to program, literally taught me how to program. Like, my boss put a Perl book on my desk and was like, write a billing system. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. He was like, you will. And then I hopped on IRC, and I learned to program because there were a bunch of people in the Perl IRC channel who were like, here's how you do that, kid. And I did, and it was great. There was the chef community, where we all came together around this thing that I had built to try to fix my consulting company that my friends had sacrificed their time and money to do while they paid our bills, and we tried to work it out, and then we did. And then we had our own IRC channel, and it was called Chef. And then people came into that channel and were like, what should I cook for my first date? And instead of making fun of that person, we gave them recipes. And then they came back, and we heard how the date went, and they liked the food. I'm doing it because I care about people. Those are the moments. Those are the things that matter. And it turns out some of those things happened because they were open source communities. Perl, Chef, sure, that's true. But the truth is, I give a shit about open source. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It's just not the thing that I need. I don't know. I was happy enough using my Mac. It was fine. I didn't have some kind of existential dread when I got up in the morning about the software I was using not being open. I care about user freedom, I guess. But I'm not mad that I can't wrench on my Audi. It's fine. I'm getting along. What I care about is community. I care about those human beings coming together to sustain each other and to take care of each other. And so if Sunil had asked me the question, would you start another community? My answer is yes. Yes, absolutely, 100% my answer is yes. But I wouldn't want to do it with those tensions that existed in the earlier couple slides. If what that means is that I'm surrounded by utility monsters who, if I disappoint any of them, they'll turn cynical and mean, I'm out. I don't want to do it. I don't care, because it's not fun. Because those people, it's hard to love those people. I do. I get it. I understand. But it's not fun, and I don't need it. Other people can love them. There's plenty of people to love in the world. They'll find people who will love them. I don't have to be that person. But I still want those people in my life, right? Because we care about the same things, and I want to be in harmony with those people. I don't want to be giving gifts. I don't want to be the person who creates this thing and then open sources it out of the goodness of my heart, out of some kind of oversized sense of just needs for free software. I want sustainable communities. I want people who come together, who take care of themselves and also take care of the software that brought them together in the first place. And I want them to do it for their own needs. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you need. I don't know if you need money. I don't know if you need friends. I don't know if you need control. Whatever you need in your life, I want you to find it. And I want it to transcend any of those individuals, mine included, where I don't want anybody's single version of the world to become the one thing that we feed all the cookies to. I want a sustainable thing that we can trust, that welcomes everyone to participate and to find their own way for their own needs. And so that brought me back to this guy. This is John Rawls, yet another black and white photograph. Less smiley, though, than Robert Nozick. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Rawls spent a lot of time talking about how to build sustainable social institutions. That was sort of the thing he was most interested in. And he came up with this idea that is rooted in this idea of justice. And it's called justice as fairness, and it goes like this. Justice is the first virtue of social institutions, as truth is of systems of thought. A theory, however elegant and economical, must be rejected or revised if it is untrue. Likewise, laws and institutions, no matter how efficient and well-arranged, must be reformed or abolished if they are unjust. He goes on. He says, each person possesses an inviolability founded on justice that even the welfare of a society as a whole cannot override. For this reason, justice denies the loss of freedom for some is made right by a greater good shared by others. It does not allow that the sacrifices of a few are outweighed by the larger sum of advantages enjoyed by the many. What Rawls is saying is, if we want to have stable social institutions, if we want communities that get out of that trap of just constantly feeding cookies to each utility monster in a circle, then what we have to do is build a level of trust in the institutions that we share together so that we can trust that the rules by which we're all getting what we want are fair and just and right? And if we do that, we don't have to sacrifice one for the other. We don't have to sacrifice what you want for what I want. We can both have what we want. So how do we do that? Rawls came up with a game, and his game most popularly is called the Veil of Ignorance. And basically the way this works is, imagine that we're going to close the doors in this room. And once the doors are closed, we're going to lock them, and I'm going to snap my fingers like Thanos. And when I do that, the whole world will disappear. And with it will be all of your wealth, and all of your position and all of your status and all of those things. It's all gone. We're in this room. We're all there is. And what's about to happen is we're going to come up with all the rules for how the world is going to work when I snap my fingers again. So when I bring the world back in, we're the only ones who are going to decide what the rules are. So what rules would we come up with to decide? Because one of the things that'll be different is you're not guaranteed you're going to get the same position in life you have now when we come back out into the world. So maybe you're at the bottom of the ladder. Maybe you have no money. Maybe you have all the money. Maybe you have power. Maybe you don't. Who knows what you're going to wind up with, right? So what are the rules we would come up with in order to actually come up with the real rules that govern how we work? And Rawls came up with 3. He said that a reasonable group, given enough time, locked in a room, would come up with these rules to decide. The first one is they would come up with some basis of equal liberty. They would say that everyone shares the same basic equal liberties. There's some core bedrock of stuff that everyone gets no matter what, and we can never trade for any reason whatsoever. This is how we, for example, don't wind up slaves, right? Because no one would accept that when we snap the fingers, you might wind up a slave, right? Not okay. So we decide that freedom, in that way, is an inviolable piece of equal liberty. We're all going to have it, right? Maybe freedom of movement, maybe freedom of speech. It comes with all kinds of things. Another one is the fair equality of opportunity. So this says that I don't know where we start out when the finger snap happens and we all come back into life. What I know is that I should be able to go wherever I want in this new society that we create. I should have the opportunity to do whatever it is that I want to do because I want things, and I should have the ability to go achieve them. And that means that whatever the opportunity is, it needs to be available to everyone, no matter what. And the last one is the difference principle. And it says that there's going to be inequality in the world once we snap our fingers again, right? Not everything will be equal. So when do we accept inequality? How do we know that an inequality is an okay thing to accept? And his answer was that we accept it only if that inequality benefits the people who have the least. Does that make sense? So we're not allowed to build rules that say, if you have the most, you get more. It's pretty simple, right? We can only build rules that say, if you have the most, maybe you get a little less because other people need it in order to get more opportunity, in order to move into the next thing, right? And lucky for us, we're not trying, like Rawls was, to reinvent government, like society as a whole. We're just talking about our little open source community that likes automation, right? So if we're going to apply Rawls's theory, what would we do? And so the first thing we have to decide is, what will our equal liberty be, right? If we take for granted Rawls's list for the broader set, so we take freedom for granted, we take freedom of speech, we take all that stuff. I mean, we shouldn't take it for granted, but you know what I'm saying, right? What would the rules be? And this was the moment where I realized that while I don't really care about open source, I am in fact an open source and free software advocate. Because it turns out that those rules are the rules that govern free software. The first one is the freedom to run the program as you wish for any purpose. I don't know who you are. I don't know how you came into Chef. I don't know what you want to do with it, but I know that you should be able to. It's pretty straightforward. The freedom to study how the program works and change it so it does your computing as you wish. Again, I don't know how you showed up. I don't know what position you're in. I don't know if you wrote Chef. I don't know if you just saw Chef for the first time. I don't know if this is the first moment you saw Habitat or Inspec, but whatever it is you want to do, I want you to do it, right? You got to be able to. The freedom to redistribute copies so you can help others. If you think Chef is useful, you should be able to give it to your friends so that they can be useful too. Because, hey, they deserve the same equal and basic liberty that I get, right? And then finally, we should have the freedom to distribute copies of the modified version to other people as well, right? If you change the program and now it works in a different way than it worked before and you think it's useful, you should be able to give it to those people, and I shouldn't be able to stop you because I didn't like what you changed, right? Because it's not up to me, because we're a community, because we all share the same equal and basic liberty, right? So this gets us the software. This guarantees us that if we just say that we'll never trade these things for any reason, ever, not for money, not for anything. Well, so this was a thing for Chef, because we were trading that for money, right? I was saying there's a part of this software that you're not allowed to have. Why? Well, because I want money. Therefore, eat it. But there's a part where we are free. You know, there's a part where we do have equal and basic liberty, and over here, that's where we're all happy in equal basic liberty land. Over here, I'm going to trade those basic liberties for money. That was once that realization hit me, I could no longer, the center for me couldn't hold. That's not why Chef changed. It just happened to be the existential crisis I was going through as I was having my conversations with my friends. But it's true. But it turns out we want more than just the software. So we have to then apply all the other rules. Fair equality of opportunity, the difference principle. We have to think about things like who becomes a member of our community? What are the requirements to be a Chef community person, right? How do we vote? Do we vote? Are we a democracy? If we're not a democracy, how do we have fair equality of opportunity? How do we ensure that anyone who wants to run the project could run the project? I don't know. You don't know either. Turns out you still don't have a vote. The way Chef works historically is I just do what I want. Did you know that? That was the deal. The deal was everybody does what they want until I don't like it. And then I say, no, I don't like it. And then you go, but we thought it was a good idea. And I go, nah. I'm not doing that anymore, but I could. I think technically I probably still could right now. How about positions of authority? Could you become the next me who gets to tell everyone that you didn't like it, therefore we're not doing it? Nope. Should you be able to? Probably. How would we know? I have no idea, but we probably have to figure it out. How about codes of conduct? You know what would be awful is if we snapped our fingers and we had all the other rules, but the thing we could do is just be mean as fuck to each other whenever we felt like it. You want to be in that community? How's that feel? Feeling good about it? I'm feeling bad about it. Because I had to have strong metal dudes defend me when I was a teenager so that I could grow up to wear Baroness shirts on stage. I don't want that to be the deal. How about license in, license out? Again, we can't trade basic freedom. So that means that whatever we build together, we have to always build together. And there can't be any exceptions. Because as soon as there's an exception, we've decided that that basic liberty isn't there anymore, and we're not equal, and it's not just, and it's not fair, and therefore what we aren't is a community. How about commercial potential? If Chef are the only people who can make money on Chef, well, what if what you want in life is money? Can you not be in the Chef community anymore? You're not allowed to do it? Are you a bad person? Are you a bad actor? Do we reject you? I mean, we could, but we shouldn't, right? Because if our goal is to actually further and sustain this resource in the world, it has to be available to you. And it turns out that by open sourcing everything and by going through this shift, it was good for Chef's business, so it wasn't a completely altruistic endeavor. But for the first time in its history, the Chef community actually has the possibility of being a sustainable one, a real one, an actual community of people who care about this thing and they steward it together into its future. That's not given to you by me or by Barry Christ or by Corey or anyone from on high. It's yours. And it will always be yours. It'll always be the community's problem. It'll always be us to solve. And it turns out that this is incredibly messy work. We don't know what the answers to these questions are. I don't know what you want. I don't know what the things are you need to build in the world. I don't know what the right system of just elections are that allow people to rise to the highest levels of leadership in the project. Chef doesn't know, because the idea that somebody who doesn't work at Chef could rise to that level is hard. So there just aren't any easy answers. What I can tell you is that there's no more benevolent dictator to supply the compromise on your behalf. because I'm playing with my kid and feeding my cat Prozac. So you got to figure it out. It's up to you. It's not up to me. And honestly, it never should have been. It's just each of you on equal ground with everyone else, with a duty to love and sustain each other through this process, to shepherd that software that we all love into the future, to decide what it should be. And I want to thank everybody here for the gift you've given me of this community, of this time, of this software. And I look forward to building it with you, not as its dictator, but as a peer, as just another person who has things that they need from the chef community. And I can't wait to create that future together with you. Thanks.